Most of us live our lives under the assumption that money is a fixed physical resource. We spend decades trading our time for it because we believe there is a limited supply to go around. This belief makes poverty seem like a natural, unavoidable consequence of the world. We look at scenes of people waiting in line for basic necessities and assume that society simply lacks the resources to provide for everyone. But the rules of modern finance tell a different story. In our digital age, the supply of money isn't tied to any physical limit. It can be programmed to multiply indefinitely. When a central bank decides the economy needs more liquidity, it doesn't wait for a new gold discovery. It simply updates a digital ledger or triggers a press to turn out sheets of tender. Because these institutions can generate trillions at will, the very idea that we cannot afford to solve basic human needs is factually incorrect. This creates a massive paradox. If we have the power to print infinite wealth and end global starvation tomorrow, why do we choose not to? The answer lies in the true nature of what we are actually trading for. Centuries ago, trade relied on the massive weight of physical gold. It was the primary source of money, but dangerous to transport across continents. Early banks offered a solution: safekeeping. Merchants left gold in a vault, receiving a paper receipt promising its return. Over time, merchants simply traded the receipts. The paper contract became the currency, while the metal stayed locked away. This created an opening for bankers. They realized since everyone used paper instead of gold, they could issue more receipts to borrowers than they had gold in the vault. If they had $5 million in gold, they could issue $10 million in receipts. By doing this, the bank effectively created money out of nothing. The physical gold supply remained static, but the money in the hands of the public had doubled through the stroke of a pen. This was the moment money transformed. It was no longer a physical resource. It was a contract based entirely on the trust that the bank could fulfill its promise. But the system had a fatal flaw. If the public ever lost that trust, the entire illusion would vanish. If too many people showed up at once to demand their gold, the bank would be exposed as a fraud. This is a bank run, a catastrophic event where the bank goes bankrupt because it simply doesn't have the metal it promised. Banks also struggled with their most powerful borrowers, kings. Monarchs borrowed gold to fund wars, but they often died in battle or simply refused to pay the banks back, leaving the lenders powerless. To mitigate these risks, banks began forming cartels. By partnering across borders and even intermarrying their families, they could share resources. If one bank faced a run, the others could supply the gold to keep the illusion alive. This network of partnerships evolved into what we now call central banking. It is a global system designed to protect the architecture of money and ensure the contracts remain valid across the entire world. This system wields the ultimate power. It can turn a worthless piece of paper into everything we value, simply by dictating that the contract must be honored. We return to our central question. If the global central banking system can print as much money as it wants, why do we still have poverty? To understand this, we must look at what happens if money becomes too easy to get. If everyone had an infinite supply, the incentive to perform difficult or dangerous labor would vanish. The entire global infrastructure would stop because no one would need to work for a paycheck. It functions like an online game. Players only spend hours on tedious tasks because the credits they earn are programmed to be scarce. If the developers gave everyone infinite credits, the game would die because the motivation to play would be gone. The same logic applies to our economy. For the system to function, money must be perceived as valuable. And for it to be perceived as valuable, it must be kept out of the hands of the people doing the work. This is where poverty serves its purpose. The visible suffering of the poor acts as a constant psychological motivator. It creates the fear necessary to make the middle and lower classes work as hard as possible to avoid a similar fate. In this framework, the powerful use poverty as a tool of social engineering. By maintaining a baseline of misery, they ensure that the infinite numbers they print remain a powerful enough incentive to keep the world running. This dynamic explains why the economy periodically collapses into stock market crashes and massive unemployment, even when there is no physical shortage of goods. An economic crisis serves as a reset button. When the public accumulates too much wealth, their dependence on the system decreases. A crash destroys that excess money, and as this chart shows, it immediately forces people to work harder just to regain their footing. Comfort is a threat to the power structure. If the general public feels financially secure, they stop participating in the competitive labor force. To prevent this, the system must periodically evaporate the public's savings. Global wars follow a similar economic logic. Beyond the political motives, conflict incinerates vast amounts of capital and physical infrastructure. By destroying the accumulated wealth of a generation and sending it to zero, the survivors are forced back into the labor market to rebuild. Once the wealth is gone, the loop restarts. The public returns to work to obtain the very currency the banks can print for free, believing once again that they are chasing a scarce and precious resource. We live in an illusion maintained by central banking. The real value in this world isn't the paper they print or the digital numbers shifted. The only truly scarce resource is your time, your labor, and the effort you spend chasing a currency that is designed to stay just out of your reach.